Hello and welcome to the King Heroes Journey podcast. My name is Beth Martins and I'm here with Mark Archer again. Thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Yeah, it was such a compelling discussion last time. I even had some interesting experiences, let's say, after that happened. I'll let you know here, but I'm going to go live on Rockfin first since that's a manual setup. And while we're waiting for people to come and jump in, I'm going to share the Rockfin link in case anybody prefers to be over on this less censored kind of a platform. We're also live on YouTube and I believe Rumble. Yep, we're live on Rumble and X, where nobody ever finds me, and Facebook as well. So, yeah, decentralized. And yeah, so after the last conversation, I was going to start by asking you some possibly very personal questions, and I haven't prepared you. Are you open to that, or would you prefer just to talk on your subject?
No, we can. I'm game. Whatever life throws at me, because that's the way it's supposed to be.
That's awesome. Good to know. Yeah. So then, how do you? I understand that you're very knowledgeable about the Bible and especially things that are beyond, what has trickled down in our translations and things that have gone sideways. But what are your beliefs, say, about God, about Jesus? I know we're going to talk about the crucifixion today, and you're going to start with what we ended with last time, that Jesus really didn't die. But I'm just curious about your own beliefs.
Well, it's I've come through that that realm, you could say, because I was born into. My mom was a Christian. My dad wasn't necessarily a believer at the time, although he did become, because he eventually became. He was a minister to people in jail. So he became a Christian, later. It didn't start out that way. And so, my parents or my mom dedicated me to God. I'll go back to using her terms, so that it's comfortable with everybody. Uh, my mom inadvertently didn't realize I don't think she understood the commandment part of it, because, and I didn't realize this till after I started translating the Bible. Uh, Let me turn this off. Sorry about that. Uh, Let me
No worries
see.
at all.
The Because when I was born, they named me, and she when you're born, when in the Bible, when you have a firstborn son, you're supposed to redeem. You're supposed to redeem your firstborn son. Uh, you bring so many shekels. That's how it was in the temple. You brought so much silver, and you paid it to the priest, and you redeemed, your son. And but she didn't necessarily do that. She dedicated me to God. It's her terms. And so, and of course, I didn't realize this until just maybe a year before she passed away. Um, and anyway, but and she also had me circumcised, not on the eighth day though. um, she didn't go that far. And But when all through us growing up, they would take us to the local church, and then she would just drop us off and then come back and pick us up. And then eventually we all went to church as a family. And then when I was 12 years old, they took us to we all went to I guess a Wednesday revival meeting or something like that. And while we were there, I went forward and to for the I guess you could say that was when I accepted, at that point, Jesus. And then that later that night I asked for, wisdom and knowledge. And basically, when I was going through grade school, I basically was, you could say, was failing, getting D's and E's and very few C's, and it just pushed me along because I guess, so I didn't get held back at all, but that's how that's what my grades were, and I still have my report cards, so to remind me, okay, I was a failure at that part of my life. And then when I after this here this conversion, uh, I had an experience. It just when I left that church, I felt like I could float out of the. I didn't feel like I was walking. I felt like I was flying out of the church. So I had you could say a revelation experience. Greater than an aha moment. And so and then I prayed that night. That just prayed to God. Well, you gave wisdom and knowledge to Solomon. Can you give it to me? And then after that, I started getting straight A's in junior high school, and not necessarily throughout my whole high school life, but I was on the honor roll the whole time.
Wow.
That's a dramatic change in my school experience. But I was always the you could say the oddball. I didn't fit in with the poor people class because usually all the because the poor people did not take the your intellectual courses, and I didn't fit in with the intellectuals because they were all the rich kids, and I was not rich. My parents were not rich,
Right.
so I didn't fit in anywhere. So I was often the you could say the brunt of the bullies. I got picked on a lot when I was in high school and in grades and in junior high. So I was in a lot of fights because they, that's what they do. They beat you up. And then I didn't go to college basically because I didn't feel I could afford to go to college. No one told me about student loans and all that kind of stuff, so I didn't go. So I went into the army, and so I went overseas for time. And while I was over there, I started to evaluate my path that I was going on. Then I started writing, poetry, because I always liked to write. When I was in high school, I loved to write, and I wrote my own. I created my own character and wrote my own pulp fiction books, and then I put them in a. These are all handwritten. I didn't type anything, and I put them in a Pope chest or a Foot Locker. I figured I'd get back to them when I got out of the military, or when I got back home from Italy. But everything got burned up in a fire. Mom's house burned down, so there went my books. But I do remember my character, and so I carry that name and I use it sometimes. But anyway, then so I started writing poems, and they're mostly Christian poems. And then whenever I go to church, I would always look for the truth, you could say. Is this what the Bible really says? And so I would always go to what I would consider uh, fundamentalist Bible churches, that didn't get wishy-washy in their their interpretation of the Bible. And so that's when I went out and bought my own dictionary and the interlinear Bible. I had the Hebrew and the English and the Greek and the English. And so when the pastor would have his sermons, I'd be looking up the words in the Hebrew, looking up the words, going backwards, going back to the original translation, and seeing see if they match up with what he was saying. And so that's when I began to see that, there are so many different translations, and I began to ask which one is the right one or which one is closest to the truth. And so that's when I got interested in wanting to translate the Bible for myself.
Mm.
And then that's when I began to see a lot of things. And but before I started doing the real serious translations, I went to a bookstore to look up things in the New Age movement, because the pastors are always preaching, warning you about the New Age movement. And sometimes the best way to learn your enemy is to go look them up. And so when I was looking at this one book, it said that there was uh, a cipher code in the first 5 books of the Bible. And so I wrote down the first one, and that was the only one that I saw that this book had. But I didn't read the whole book because I didn't buy it. I should have bought it, but I didn't. And so I wrote down the key that it gave, and I went home and pulled out my Hebrew Bible, and I and I followed the key. And then that's when I discovered that you had to use the first letter, the letter that's used for the chapter 1, the Aleph, and then that's how the code worked. And so then I didn't share that with the pastor. I just kept it to myself. And then when I entered into the Messianic movement, I eventually met somebody who understood that code. I went to the Feast of Tabernacles in Tennessee to visit, a friend, and in there I met somebody who hikes. I felt led to tell him of the code, and when I did that, it sort of perked his interest as to how I learned it, and because he said this code is not for people who are not of the bloodline families. This is Illuminati talk. Everybody that's in the Illuminati, at least the high ups, they're in there because of their family. They're not in there because they want to be in there. They're born into it. And so he said that this knowledge is only for them. And so he was surprised that I had understood the key enough to write it down and translate it at my level. Of course, he did not tell me that I made a mistake, but I guess he's the kind of leader or teacher that teaches you what you want to know. In other words, he tries to get you to go on to the next level, but he doesn't actually put you there. You go there, and then he leads you on through. And if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
In
Yes.
some ways, I teach that myself. I don't allow I go where the student goes and go from there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very good. Thank you for sharing. I just want to mention that if anybody missed the first interview that we did that might fill in some of the other blanks, then you can see that in the chat here. I'm hoping you can see that. And I do see that people are on in a variety of platforms here. Come and say hi in the chat if you like. If you've got questions, please feel free to add them to the chat. And so before we go on to our subject today, I'm just curious about, so there's the basic, and this will feed into our first subject, that there is the basic premise in Christianity that Jesus died for my sins, that I'm born of original sin and I need to be saved. Is that in your belief system?
It, in some ways, yes, and in some ways, no, because now I have the picture of okay, in heaven, Lucifer had a role, and the way he looked at that role was he was he looked at that role as if he was a slave to that, a slave or a servant. And we have the freedom of choice. When life makes something made, they have freedom to choose. We all have the free will choice. Excuse me. And so even he had that free will choice. but he looked at it like in a negative fashion and says I don't want to be a servant. He wants, I want to be, I want my inheritance and I want to rule. Because you get that from the Bible. Because he's uh, he wanted to displace his parents, so to speak, and be the number one. Well, that's never he came to the conclusion that that's never going to happen because, well, his parents are never going to die, so he's not going to get that inheritance. And so he did something that precipitated him being cast out of the of heaven, and so he was cast out. There's no way to be, there's no other place to be cast out but to the physical realm. And so if you take the story of Cain and Abel, this is the story of Lucifer in heaven. Because when you get to add more proof to that idea, in the New Testament, in the Gospel of John, Yeshua's confronting the Pharisees and the Jews and the scribes, and he tells them, "Well, you were of your father the devil, for you do the deeds of your father, and he was a liar and a thief and a murderer from the beginning, and so are you." Well, you have to ask yourself, okay, well, who did Lucifer murder? In heaven to be cast out of heaven. And so, I'm not exactly sure on that. I see evidence of that. Had to do something with the physical realm, because when you see things in the physical realm, you see these everybody calls, a lot of people call them mountains, but they're all flat on the top, and then so I myself, I think they look like trees. And then when you look at the pattern around the trees, you realize that they follow the pattern of a silicon life. When you look at the pattern, the microscopic pattern of silicon, it looks like the same pattern as those cylinders that go up, like, let's say, the Devil's Tower. And there are thousands of these all over the earth. And so when you start looking at them, those cylinders, those they look like rock now, but they're patterned, and when you follow that pattern, you look it up, it's the same pattern for a silicon. And so you realize that then maybe the life form that Lucifer murdered was he cut down all these silicon trees to make the realm that we're in, the physical realm that we're in. Because if you look at Genesis chapter 1, and you read Genesis chapter 1-2, it says that, "And the spirit of the Elohim walked upon the face of the earth," or walked upon the waters, and there was formless and void. When you look at the Hebrew words of that, it's desert and it's ruined. Well, that doesn't make any sense. They figure the Creator would make something. He wouldn't make it deserted, and he wouldn't make it ruined. So it had to get ruined from some other fashion, and it fits that was what Yeshua was talking about. That's something that Lucifer did, and that's what he did. He ruined part of the physical realm, and so with that, he was cast out of heaven permanently. And so now he's sent to wander. When Cain killed Abel, Cain was cast out of the family, and then he was sent into the land of Nod. Well, Nod just means, it's a Hebrew word for wander. So he's sent to wander, and then he had to make his own civilization. Well, that's a story of what happened in heaven for Lucifer to get kicked out of heaven, and then he had to wander and create his own civilization. Well, that's where we're at now. And you notice the first thing that happened on the earth, um, with in regards to the Elohim, chapter 1 verse 3, they had to choose. That's the way I look at it. They had to choose a leader, because it doesn't say let us. It doesn't really say let us, let there be light. It doesn't say let there be light, because the word let is not there. All it is he is. The word that they translate for let us is he is. And so, and the Elohim said he is light, or and another, the Latin word for or is luminous or lucido, and that's where we get the word Lucifer from. So it says, and he is Lucifer, and he is Lucifer. So that's the Elohim deciding they're picking their leader. That's the way I read that. They're picking their leader. They're picking Lucifer. And Elohim is more than one. So it's plural. Elohim is a plural word. So there's more than one. And so then on the third day, or the second day, they divide the waters, and really another way of interpreting that is he is in the water. So when you do the water, there's a water experiment that people do to make Ormus water. I don't know if you ever heard of Ormus water. And I've made it. I've done the experiment, and it's the weirdest thing that ever happened. One of the weirdest things. Took a blender, and I put magnets all the way around it, because that's what you're supposed to do. You put magnets all the way around it. Then you put water in it up to the part where you have the magnets are. And then you blend the water at the highest speed. And I guess it has to do something with the magnetism of the magnets. That I guess somehow it separates it. But they said, when I did the experiment from, following it the way he did it online, they said that an orb went out of the water. Well, I didn't stay around long enough to see the orb. But I saw the evidence of the orb in two places of the house, which was weird. So I understand there was something in the water. Another way to do, have you ever heard of that Japanese scientist who did these water experiments where he
For sure. Maramoto or
Maramoto, yes.
Mhm.
And so how, they first he played music around the water, and then he froze the water, and the water made a pattern, but he also just taped the words around the vial of water, and then flash froze it, and it still did the same thing. So, but somehow the water had to read those words, if you understand the experiment. And so there's an intelligence in the water. So that matched with what I was reading in the Hebrew, translating it. You can translate it in such a way as the water had intelligence. The water had Elohim in them. And that fit with that experiment. So, it's sort of the proof text.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so the Elohim is in the water. Not all bad Elohim, because not all the Elohim are bad, just those ones that followed Lucifer. Because the Bible says he took a third of the stars, and when he was kicked out of heaven, he took a third of the stars. So that's only a third of them. That's not all of them. So then every day something's made, and the third day they made the plants. In the fourth day, all the items for time. Then the fifth day, birds and your insects and your simple reptiles, like your amphibians and frogs and stuff like that. Those are all made on the fifth day. And then on the sixth day, your more complicated animals. But it's always the they're always made from aharetz, which is earth. That's the term we get for earth. And then man was the last thing, or Adam was the last thing that was made. And
So yeah, that's awesome. I'm just thinking that if we could jump, because I know we got a lot to cover. It's going to be the eclipse coming up, and I know you want to relate
right,
the work to that, and the times of Lot and or Noah and Lot, if you go
right,
in more order of that, and then the crucifixion, that when you talked about it last time, you said actually really didn't happen. So it's not a
right,
death. It kind of takes the validity out of that. Jesus died for my sins because there wasn't a death there. Not certainly not, or like from what you're saying at the level of the body. Although I'm very familiar with psychic death, and for sure they killed him a whole bunch of times. If that story is true on that level.
well,
And
death is more like separation. In that regards, they separate. But if you think about it, if the creator is life itself, that's the term we should use, not necessarily God, because God means luck and fortune. So we don't want to be the product of luck and fortune. We want to be the product of life, because that's what we all have. Because the Bible says, choose with the living. And so if we're to choose with the living, that means, let me go back just one little bit, because I had a problem with this growing up. Uh, I don't know what your picture of capital punishment, but you get a picture of capital punishment with the Bible. That if you commit a murder, just you get executed. Okay, why wasn't Cain executed? Why was he cast out and allowed to live? Uh, when he killed his brother, and I think, well, maybe it's because there weren't two witnesses. Then I began to think, well, he says the blood of Abel is crying out to you, so that's a witness. And if God is, at this point, using God, is omnipresent, he saw it because he knew, because he confronted Cain. So there were two witnesses. So he had two witnesses. Uh, so then I began to really rethink about it. Maybe life cannot be a part of death. The living, because he's living, the living cannot be. So maybe death is not really supposed to be part of the equation. Death is part of the equation if for who brought death into the world, and death is a negative thing. Maybe death is Lucifer's role. Maybe that's because he brought, his realm is this realm, and there's death all over this realm, and we're told that he's the God of this world, and so maybe that's the part that he has in this. So if we have, if we're to choose with the living, that means we can't, whatever we choose should not have death in it. You understand? So, and I was trying to figure, well, what's the religion that I should have, because all religions have, in one fashion or another, they have death involved with them.
Yeah, there's a fixation with death, and then Lucifer being that inverter and the master of the illusions and lying. Because that's my experience. I was telling you just before we got on that I was recording my audiobook, and specifically the chapter in the Nurturer where I think I'm dying. I'm allowing myself to die. I'm surrendering to death. And that was the massive breakthrough, that when I gave over to death and let it have me, it wasn't there at all. And I even knew that if my body
I
was,
lost internet.
oh, yeah. Okay. So, oh, darn. So that's okay. But I was just talking about that chapter in my book that I was recording about when I thought I was dying. And when I gave over to death and surrendered to death, it wasn't death at all, right?
Right.
It was full of life. So
Uh-huh.
the most frightening thing to me of death that I was trying to stave off and push away at all cost, and go through all kinds of contortions to prevent, it wasn't what I thought it was.
Right.
It was only frightening when I was holding it separate from myself.
Mm-hmm.
But when I let it totally have me, it was full of life and full of joy. And I knew even if my body passed, it wasn't death either.
Right. Yeah. So you change your perspective on what death was. You see that's where we have a choice of our perspective. Um, and when you look at the way Yeshua carried on, he didn't have a fear of death because he knew that his real life was not his physical life. His real life was his spiritual life, and that could not die. So we have to change our perspective of how we look at death. And sometimes you don't get there until you actually come face to face with it. Um, I guess and guess with our talk earlier, I came face to face with death quite young, um, unintentionally,
Of course. Yep.
and
Yep.
um,
Yeah.
and
There's
so
no.
that's right. And so that's why I started to think of the possibility of because when someone brought up that Yeshua did not die on the that doesn't mean he wasn't crucified. It just means he didn't die on the tree. And you started re-looking at the words that are chosen that describe the crucifixion. And when you get to the part about the centurion uh, looking at him, well, he's not a doctor. He's not really gonna know the ins and outs of the narcotic that he gave to him earlier that slowed down his heart rate to really slow. So he thought he was dead because he was. When you slow down your heart rate, you don't breathe as fast or as normal as you normally do when you're alive. So he thought he was dead. And then when he poked his side with his lance, his spear, well, if he was really dead, there wouldn't have been no gushing out of blood and water because it wouldn't have gushed out because the heart's not pumping it anymore because the heart pumping is what causes it to gush out. So when it says that the blood and water flowed, that's gushing out. It's another interpretation of the word, that Greek word. So that shows you his body is still pumping blood, pumping pumping water. So he's not dead. Now, just because we interpret it as being dead doesn't make it. And then being that it was they couldn't keep him up there uh, into the Sabbath, so they brought him down, and then that gave that added validity to the other story that I'd gotten. Because the herbs that Joseph of Arimathea brought, they were not just herbs for embalming; they were also herbs of healing. They can be used for both purposes.
For
So,
sure. Yeah. No, I remember you talking about that. So then, is there any conclusion that you draw from the event that is like a spiritual truth for you, and does it fly in the face of that Jesus died for my sins paradigm?
well, how do we get forgiveness? How does when Yeshua was talking with his his disciples, trying what did he how did he told them the path of how to get forgiveness for your sins, and that's through the forgiving others. If you can't forgive so and so, then you can't get forgiven, and that's the most important part are getting past ourselves, because when we do something wrong, we feel guilty. So we have to get past ourselves. Uh, we have to get past our guilt. And how you do that is by forgiving other people for the thing that they've done against you. Because usually what you see in somebody else, you see your mistakes in somebody else. That's why you judge them, because you're actually judging yourself. That's why, because as he said, do not judge lest you be judged, in the manner in which you judge, you shall be. Well, when you judge somebody else, they're a mirror to you, and you're seeing your sins. Now, your sin may not be the same as theirs, but you still see your sin, your mistakes in somebody else, and you're judging yourself. So that's why you have to look at yourself. When you go to judge somebody, you look at yourself, instead of, and use that as a reflection. Use what you see in somebody else as a reflection, and then so you forgive them, and in forgiving them, you get forgiveness. So you don't necessarily need the death part of that to get forgiveness.
Right. Yeah, I have a little bit of a different take on forgiveness. Like there's truth in there. The only thing to me missing is that forgiveness is not actually the tool that brings about that result. To me, the forgiveness is the result. That when you heal from something that you've been injured by or
Right.
victimized by or you did to yourself, then forgiveness is there on the heels, right? But the I only say that because people go, "Oh, well, I forgive you," as if that's the thing that they need to do to heal. But to me, it's totally backwards. You need to heal, and then there's a natural forgiveness that comes from it.
We probably need, uh, some of each. You
Yeah.
understand?
Yeah, but when you try to put forgiveness on top of injury and trauma or whatever it is, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. And the worst part is you fake your way through it. You can pretend
Oh,
that
that's because you're not sincere. Then,
that you've forgiven.
yeah,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
not
Anyway,
sincere.
that's just an aside there. But
You
so
it needs to be sincere. You can't
yeah.
just you can't fake it.
Well, it's not faking it. It's I think it's a misfiring of and that's often like the Bible has a lot of truth, but it's not telling you how to get there. Right. And sometimes I wonder if they don't twist those things because of the experience I just shared. But
Well, that's a possibility, because the it's all in it's like that old thing, you lose it in translation. That's why
mhm,
it's good to go back to see what it actually says in the original language, and then
yes,
you may get a better interpretation. Uh,
exactly. Exactly. And then also like you and I are a good pair because you're doing that hard work of unearthing like what do the words actually say.
yeah.
And for me, it's if I can't find it true inside my own experience, it's not true.
Well, that's the way it goes, because you have to find the truth inside yourself first. You can't go finding it somebody else. They can. That's the way life. I'm gonna. That's the way life communicates. Life does not communicate with words. Life communicates through, you could say, through symbolism, and or not necessarily symbol, but opportunity. Life. It's like, okay, I fell out of the boat when I was 2 years old. Now this is not a story for me. This is a story for my dad, because he had two choices at that point. He could have froze and chose, to get all scared and not know what to do, or he, that's choosing death. You know, or he could choose life and choose, to save me. I don't know how he saved me. I don't know how far away I was from the boat, or he could have just had to reach down his hand and pull me up. That's, uh, but he had to make that act. He had to do that act. He had to choose life, and so he did. You know,
Yeah.
you always have two choices. An opportunity will come upon you, and you have to choose life, or you choose the living, or you choose death. It, that apply that to Adam and Eve in the garden. They chose the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Now, but maybe in their perspective, maybe, we got into this the last time, considering the words that are there. The words that are there are slavery and servanthood, and because that's what Obed means, and that's the words that show that that's the role that Adam and Eve had in the garden. Well, they could have said to themselves, "Well, we don't want to be slaves. We don't want to be servants. We want to be free." And because of that, when you get to that point, it's like looking at the episode of The Cage in Star Trek. And
Right. Yeah, we talked about that. We're going to have a little Star Trek meeting in the House of Free Will, by the way, that we're going to start watching a few episodes of that. And I was just curious, and I am mindful of the time that we have today.
oh yeah,
How, if possible, to bridge, from Easter to the times of Noah and Lot
right,
that I promised to talk about.
right.
Yeah. So what is
Well,
the?
I guess it could just you could. It's a good thing you're keeping track of the time.
I apologize. Yeah, I'm
I should apologize. I'm the one
scheduled.
driving the
That's okay.
conversation.
That's all right. And I will invite people to go and listen in more detail to the first episode that we did. And so, is there a bridge between Jesus at the crucifixion and, I mean, we're sort of in different times. Like Noah is way before Christ, right?
Right.
Yeah. So um, and it doesn't matter if there's not a bridge there, but what inspired you to talk about the times of Noah and Lot right now, especially given that we're 4 days away from this eclipse that is scary, scary. They're saying, oh, it's going to burn your retinas, and
Well,
it's the start of a war. Or
right.
yeah,
Well, did you see what I sent you?
did I watch that video? Yes, I did.
Yeah. So doesn't that give you? I didn't really realize that there are orbs, that cause the eclipse instead of the moon.
It's not the moon.
Yes.
Okay, I think I think you might have sent a video. I had a question mark in my head, like why did he send that? So it doesn't sound familiar, that what you're saying. Um, so you think that eclipse is not even the moon?
Right. Yeah. Because I had another video. I saw another video. This lady says, "Well, it goes moon. The moon is in this part of the house of the sky now, and the sun is in this part, and they're not in the same area. Like she was saying that the moon is in Pisces, or the sun is in Pisces, and moon is in this, whatever it is. They're not in the same house in the sky." And she said, "Well, there wouldn't be. They're not going to cross paths because they're not. They have to be in the same house in the sky. They have to be in the same constellation to cross paths." She
Right,
goes, "They're not going to be in the same. They're not in the same constellation, so it's not the moon that's causing this eclipse."
right,
So, and it's funny how when you have that, that's life telling you something. Life's giving you some information, and then I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know whether to believe it or not, and then all of a sudden I got this other video where this guy is up in a plane and he's looking at the moon at the sun, and then he sees these orbs that are close to the sun, and then he goes, those orbs are what is going to go in front of the sun.
okay, so that's a whole different
So
take
in
right
that,
there. Yeah.
right, there's a different
Yeah.
take, but that matched up with what this other lady was saying about the eclipse. That they're both, the moon and the sun are in different houses, and the houses are constellations. They're different constellations, so they're not going to marry up to block each other out. And so now I sort of understand. And that's how life works. Life presents you with different information at the right, to give you a different picture, a different perspective of of whatever's going on around, so that you know how to interpret it right, if you want to interpret it at all. So I believe that there's a message here for us, and how it goes through. And that pastor, there's a pastor that I listened to. He was more correct with he described the Nineveh thing in the right fashion. Because remember, the guy that you talked to said that Nineveh was going to be under the or in the path of the eclipse, and I could not find 7 Ninevehs to be in the path of the eclipse, but I found 2. And this guy, this pastor who lives in Missouri, he lives near St. Louis. He said that only 2 Ninevehs are in the path, in the direct path, but there are 7 other in Nineveh. They're just not in the direct path, which is more in line with what I had discovered. And then he talked about the Salems. There are 36 Salems in the United States. And he said there were 33 in the path. Maybe he's just saying that 33 are close, but there's actually only 12 that are in the path, in the direct path. And then there are 3 other ones that are really close, and I live in one of those ones that are really close.
Very good.
And,
Yeah. So, and then does the eclipse relate to the stories of Noah, the times of Noah and Lot? Is that the connection you're
I'm
drawing?
not sure if they do or not,
Ah,
but
okay.
we live in the times of we are living in the times of Lot and the times of Noah, because mankind is doing, or Lucifer is doing the same thing as was being done then, like the manipulation of DNA, the mixing of creatures, the mixing of species. We're doing all that. That was done in the times of Noah, and it was done in the times of Lot, and in with the transgender movement, that was heavy in the times of Lot. That's what was going on in the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, and there's Zoar, Zeboim, and Adamah. But the funny thing is, I went and looked for those cities, and as I'm looking for the cities, and doing the translation, I realized that there is no Gomorrah, because there is
Right.
no G in that word.
Right. You had mentioned that. Yeah. Yeah. It might be
There is
America.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's Amora.
Right. Right. And so, if we talk about, say, the times of Noah being before Lot, and so when you read the Hebrew there, is there anything different about that story than we're commonly led to believe, that God destroyed all of humanity because of all of that corruption that was going
Mhm.
on, genetic manipulation, immoralities,
Right.
and then sent the waters, which I'm very curious, like, where did the waters actually come from, if the Hebrew lends us any insight there.
Well, if you think about it, uh, it's you have to you have to go back to chapter 1 of Genesis, because that's where you learn about the sons of Elohim, and that's how you get the sons of Elohim, and you get the Nephilim, and then and then going into the daughters of men, because the sons of Elohim are your children are the product of you. So when the Elohim make the first Adam, Adam is his son. So he's the son of Elohim.
Not the son of life.
No, not the son of life.
Mhm.
So this is the son of Elohim. He's the sons of Elohim. So that's where you get the sons of Elohim for that are mentioned in chapter 6 of Genesis. And then these sons of Elohim are the ones that go into the daughters of the second Adam. Okay. and they don't necessarily. I don't understand how they still would have been able to procreate. So what I'm thinking is they did more of the still of genetic manipulation with man. You know, because they're the sons of Elohim are giants, and and the sons of Adam and the daughters of Adam, the second Adam, they're not going to be giants. So there's no way they're going to be able to procreate in the natural fashion. So what I'm thinking is they captured and they procreated through the way the scientists would do it. You know what I mean? Capturing your DNA, I guess by, however they do it, with a needle and a
Yeah, cloning events, right?
right cloning events.
Yeah, yeah.
Because there's no way they would have been able to procreate naturally, because it just they wouldn't fit. It'd be, you'd have to do your own imagination.
Hmm. Hmm. I get it. I get it. So then Adam was, you're saying Adam, son of Elohim, was a giant.
Right? Yeah, they were giants.
Okay, got
Yeah,
it.
there's a scripture where uh, it's there's a psalm where it talks about, or maybe it's not a psalm, maybe it's in First Thessalonians talks about. He says, and a body was prepared for Yeshua. You could say the Messiah. Well, the first Adam, Lucifer, and the Elohim are preparing themselves bodies, because what is says don't you know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit? So our bodies are prepared for the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit lives inside us. So you could say that you could apply those verses in several different fashions depending on your perspective. Well, there's a perspective for the negative side too. As so because they needed Lucifer is a spiritual being, so and he doesn't have a physical body, so he's making himself a physical body. Does that make sense?
Right.
So
Right.
so he's preparing himself a body, and so he's preparing. They're preparing themselves bodies there, because there's more than one Elohim, because Elohim's plural, so there's more. So they're preparing themselves bodies. So, and then with that, and then they go to the next stage, and so that would consider them sons then. But they carry the spirit of the Elohim, and you notice
Right.
that there's no breathing into them the breath of life. There's none of that in the first chapter. So they don't have the choice. Those bodies don't have the choice of choosing. Uh, they don't have no free will, because when you go into reading the book of Enoch, and in there the Nephilim, uh, the the fallen angels are asked. They're petitioning life to have mercy on the Nephilim, and life says we're not having any of it, or there's no they chose the way they are. Well, actually they didn't choose, they had no choice in the matter. So they had no choice, so they have no mercy. uh
So, but then with Lucifer, wasn't it his choice to try to overcome and be life itself? Wasn't
well
that a
he
choice?
he had a choice, and he chose wrong, he chose
Mhm.
poorly.
Right.
And so once you make that choice, there's no going back. You
Right. That's
can't go
called
backwards.
right. In my world, that's called the saboteur as an archetype.
Right.
How the choices that you make actually remove your choices. So bingo, I totally get that.
Yeah, so that's why he didn't make the first Adam was not made with the ability to choose. he was made to be the body. He was the body prepared for Lucifer and the fallen angels. And then so then they saw the daughters of man, and they started to oh, and then I just was reading that thing. And then so they saw the daughters of men and decided to to work with their DNA to make the Nephilim, the next stage down, because um, the level of giant that the sons of Elohim were taller than the Nephilim, and then after the Nephilim you have the Raphaim, and each one is a stage smaller, because the Raphaim, the Nephilim, the Raphaim come in after the flood. Those are the giants after the flood, uh, and so then they were the product of the Nephilim, or they were just as domineering and as oppressive as as those Adamites were, because it says they were made to have domination and subjugation. So that's they didn't offer any liberty or any freedom to, they wanted nothing but they wanted to make everybody slaves.
No mercy.
No mercy. There were no mercy. And so the Nephilim were the same they were made in the same the same image. That's the word I'm looking for, image, because that's their image. Because the image of the second Adam was servitude. So you can't make them both the same image. You have to understand the words mean things, and the second Adam was not made from Haharetz. He was made from Adamah, so they're made differently, and that Adam is breathed into the breath of life, and so he had a choice at that point. He could choose which way he wants to go, and of course they did not want to be slaves of Yahweh Elohim. They wanted freedom, so they chose we would rather suffer death than to be slaves, even if this place of slavery was the garden of pleasure.
Okay.
See, and that's the parallel. That if you do this Star Trek thing, put the cage in there, and I'll be a part of it.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, I was going to invite you to join. Absolutely.
Make the cage part of it, and make that the episode.
Okay. Yeah, that's exactly what I had in mind.
And I'll join, and if I'll try to be available on that day.
Okay, fantastic.
I don't know when you're doing it. You had to tell me.
Yeah, it would be a Tuesday at 3 p.m. So that's when our meetings are. So then that would be a good time. I'll keep you posted for sure.
Oh, yeah, keep me posted.
Yeah.
I'm a Star Trek, fan. I just, even the bad Star Trek, I still like it. But okay. So that's the way I look at that's another perspective, another way of looking at the Garden of Eden, and there are several ways you can look at it. I'm not saying my way is the only right way, but it's another way of looking at that. So it's not necessarily a bad it's not necessarily a bad thing that Adam and Eve chose non-slavery to the Elohim.
Right. It's a totally different twist on
They
the
didn't.
plot.
Pardon?
It's a totally different twist on the plot, right? Because we have this, the Garden of Eden is this picture of perfection, right? That and we're trying to get back there. But what you're
Right.
suggesting is that it was more of that, indulgence, maybe hedonistic kind of, and they chose freedom over that hedonism. Is that correct?
I'm not. I wouldn't. I didn't go that far.
Okay.
I didn't go the hedonistic part. I didn't. That never came into my mind.
Okay.
Uh, but considering considering that Yahweh was an Elohim, because it doesn't say in chapter 2 that Adam was made in the image of Yahweh. It doesn't say that. So you cannot make it say that. That's the premise of how I look at the Bible. If it doesn't say it, it's not there. So I'm not going to make it there. So chapter 2 doesn't say that Adam was made in the image of Yahweh, and so he was. He doesn't say that, so I don't make it say that. It does say that he was made from Adamah. Uh, it does say that he was made male and female. That's why Eve had to be taken. So Eve had to be separated from him. Um, but it does say that he was given the breath of life. He was, soul. He has a soul, so he has a choice of which way to go. And they chose to leave the garden of pleasure. See, if you don't translate eating, you won't look at it like that. you know and if you don't translate the word serve, you don't realize that word obed means slavery. you know so, all the terms with that, and so you don't
Exactly.
know that he was choosing freedom over slavery.
Right. Wow, that's amazing. And then so how does that relate to the time of Noah?
Well, um Noah, and I picture the time of Lot um as all the inhabitants of Sodom and Gomorrah, or Sodom and Amorah. They were all uh, transgender. They were all reverting back to. They were all in that frame of mind, and so they were doing what was right, because Lot was still considered righteous, but he had to be saved from there. The two angels, the two messengers, and he treated them properly. He passed the test, you could say. Um, and then he wanted to keep them from that atmosphere. And so, but there was no saving the Sodomites. And so the angels grabbed him and his daughter and his wife, and took them out of the city before it was destroyed. And then his wife regretted leaving, because that's why she looked back, and then she was turned into a pillar of salt. And his daughters uh, left with him, and then he bargained for the city of Zoar, that to go there. He said that they weren't as bad as Sodom and Gomorrah, so he was allowed to go there, and they didn't destroy the fifth. That's the fifth city of the Sodom and Gomorrah cities, the city of Zohar. And then I began to wonder, when you look at some of the prophecies of the of the minor prophets, they talk about Sodom and Gomorrah as still being around. So there must be the spirit of Sodom and Gomorrah still being around, as it. And so I began to wonder if, because I'm trying to justify, not justify in a righteous manner, but justify the actions that I see around us, as to where to put it. Because you see movements in the United States and in the world, uh, and you try to figure out, okay, how does this apply to where we're at? And you see the movement, the transgender movement and the transhumanism movement. All of that plays into the time of Sodom and Gomorrah, because they were doing the same thing.
And is that Noah, or you're talking about Lot?
Lot, Lot.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, so
we are
not
more
not
we are
Noah.
more in the time of Lot now than we are in the time of Noah. But Noah, they were doing the same thing. They were doing the same thing, but
Right, right.
it's
And
more
is that
intense in the
mhm,
time of Lot.
right. So So then that's, life and sees all of this aberration and upside down and trends, unnatural,
Right,
everything
unnatural.
unnatural, and decides to, for lack of a better way to say it, can the experiment. It's over. Here comes the flood, everybody dies.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's
preserves um, one man's lineage. Who
right,
do you see that as being like us? Was Noah had a soul
right.
and had the ability to choose right from wrong, unlike all of the people that were
Well, they
doing.
chose. They had the right. They had the ability to choose. They chose the path that they're on. They chose it. The people around you that are choosing to be sodomites and whatever they are, they're choosing that path.
Oh, I thought you said that the son of the Elohim,
Yeah,
Adam.
the son of them. But we're beyond that. We're looking at today. People have the choice today. You have a choice to be. You have a choice to choose life or death. If you're choosing the death path, you're taking yourself out of the life path.
So do you see it as like we're two parallel societies going on here? You've got the sons of the Elohim, and then you've got the sons of life, the
Yeah.
one with the soul, one with no choice.
Well, yeah. I still say yeah. There the super elites are from the family of the first Adam. Or the family of Cain. Uh, there's stages. And then and when you look at them, to be honest, I do see them as people have no soul. 'Cause they're not, they're not even, they're beyond not choosing. They're just they want to be where they're at.
Yeah,
But
they're
there are people who follow them who are choosing that lifestyle. When you look at the music industry, and I don't know if I sent you, um, because I send you certain things to sort of, you could say, open open up certain doors, see if you can see what's going on. You got, because the music industry, they and this is the same with Hollywood. People who want to be in Hollywood, uh, besides the elites that are already there, that have that run the place, there are people like us that emulate it. I don't emulate it, but there are people like us that do emulate, the music industry, and they want the money, they want the prestige, but they don't yet see that Lucifer has his contracts out there for you to sign to be a part of that. Who What does it say? He who gains the whole world will lose his own soul. You remember that? Talk about well, they think that they're gaining the world, but they don't realize there's a price to pay, and
right.
the price is your soul. So you see, they have a choice. They're not like the 15 the 15 Illuminati families that we talked about before. The 15 families, they're not in that level. They are in the level of, they have a choice to join them, or the choice not to join them, because they want to emulate them, be like them, be like the Elohim, because that's what part of that's part of that knowledge of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And they said, and the Elohim say that they will be like one of us. That's why we had to kick them out of the Garden of Eden. That's not, when they say that, they're that you have to look at that like that's that's the Elohim that are talking there. And it's not, they'll be like one of us. That's not talking about mother and father life. That's not them. That's not who's talking there. The Elohim are talking there. And they'll be like one of us, because they ate that knowledge. They wanted that knowledge because they wanted to be free from, the slavery that they were putting them under.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like
Yeah.
the if you remember the cage, the thing that they said to you would, if you chose to stay here after knowing, because Captain Pike says there's no something that we could do, to help you live longer or whatever, he says, well, you would learn our ways, and then you would you'd be like one of us, and then you would eventually want to destroy, so you have to understand what that the episode is telling you. So
Right.
it's the same thing. It's the
Yeah.
same thing as we're going at now.
Yes.
So you see, people entering, I don't know if you listen to some of the testimonies of some of the hip hop artists and the rap artists, because they're coming out and exposing the contracts that they've made with these 15 bloodline families, and they're not going to be at the same level as them. They just want the prestige of them.
Right. Right.
And so they're making the choice. They're selling their souls.
Exactly. Yep. That's right. So, if you don't mind, just because I'm a little fixated on the times of Noah at the moment, and then so that and one of the things about the Old Testament and people's difficulty in navigating that work is because it's portraying God, life, as you say, as a ruthless killer. Now, with the context that you have given, that you know that they are that who he killed, was only those more soulless beings. And then I'm curious about the Rainbow Covenant and how God says, "Oh, I'll never do that again," or
That's why we're in the time of Lot, because it's not going to be a flood this time. It's going to be. There's other parts of the Bible that talk about fire and.
So God only promised, or life only promised, not to bring the waters, but is
Right,
it?
yeah.
But has no. Is he never promised not to kill all the people?
Well, I think that if the story of Lot is there's got to be some way of pulling Lot out, because Lot was pulled out. So and I don't know how it's going to be.
Like Daniel was pulled out, right? Like even when
Yeah,
the whole
Lot, yeah, Lot,
civilization.
yeah. Daniel was preserved through the fire.
Mhm.
So Lot could, Lot was preserved from the fire.
Hmm. Noah was
Uh,
preserved. His lineage was
he was
preserved.
preserved through the flood,
Hmm.
and then it was promised that it would no longer be a flood. It was going to be something else. So somehow, those that are who have chosen life, you know, will not be. They will be preserved either through the fire or from the fire, either by the way of Daniel, or by the way that Lot was preserved from the fire. And and I was wondering, because there was somebody coming out, um because I'm working with the premise of Lot, because and then I was trying to figure out, okay, where is there that place that we could go to, that because I see it as all over the world. There's not a place in the world that's not held under the tyranny of the of the five cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. And it's funny how when you take away the G, it's Amora. So
Oh, we might have some connection problems.
yeah, and
You're back again. Okay.
okay, uh, th- there's only one place that I know that sounds like Amora, and that's the Americas.
Right. Right. But I'm curious about that covenant, because that's so confusing. So God or life is only saying that I'm not going to kill you by water.
Right.
So that's it's not like I'm not going to destroy humanity again.
Well,
But
you have
there's
to. Yeah, I don't think he's going to destroy all of humanity because that wouldn't be right. That would not fit. That would not fit the stories that were being given. Through the Bible. Even though the Bible is written by the enemy, he cannot ignore us, those that follow life. So he's got to tell everything. So our salvation is through the word itself. It's being told in the word. Um, so there's going to be a price to pay for the people who don't uh, who pick death, and I
right,
believe that we will be spared something. I just don't know how. I don't know how.
right. And then so the ruthless killing of everybody, is that is that by life that did that, or is that the Elohim
Oh,
God?
the Elohim. You mean who caused the flood?
Yeah, like who's causing the destruction? Is it life and that so I'm just curious
No, no,
because
life is
all the
not causing the destruction.
mhm,
He's allowing it.
which
Um,
is a kind of causing it, right?
right. Well, it's a kind of cause. It's sort of like this. You ever see the movie, the Clint Eastwood movie of
No.
for
I haven't
for a
seen
few?
any movies at all, sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
No, I'm kinda
There's
useless that way.
yeah. There's a movie because they got to tell us what they're going to do. And they tell us through books, through movies, and through song.
They being the Elohim,
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
evil
yeah,
ones with no
yeah. The
choice and
yeah
no
the
soul.
Luciferians. They have to tell us what they're going to do. They have
Mm,
to tell us how they're going to do it. So
right.
so when you look at when you look at certain movies or any movie, you have to realize you don't look at it as entertainment. Look at it as you're being told something, a
Right.
message, and so
So
there's
forgive
a
me,
message.
yeah, forgive me, I'm just trying to make sense of the storyline, even the first thing. So then it's, when you look at the Hebrew in the Bible, it's actually the soulless Elohim that brought the flood to kill all those beings, and then the real God, life, just let that happen? Is that how you read it?
Well, he didn't. Well, no, because Noah was saved. Noah was the only. Noah is a picture of the only righteous that are there. So the right. That's like when Abraham. Who's going to be the Abraham? Who's the Abraham now? Because Abraham. What did he do? He's part of the story.
Right,
He
but we're taught.
prayed.
Yeah, sorry, Mark, but we're taught that it's, and I'll just maybe I'll go back to the word God. So how how we know the
Right.
source of life
Right.
itself, if we just define it that way. And so we're taught that God destroyed all of humanity except Noah's lineage,
Right.
Noah, his wife, the children.
Right.
Right. So are you saying the Bible doesn't say that was an act by the more soulless Luciferian, like that?
No. No. What I'm saying is the sometimes um, you have to look at there's like I said there's several ways of looking at a story, you know, because you got just for a little instance, Joseph. Joseph was sold into slavery by his wicked brothers. Okay, and then now he could look at that and look at it as in getting revenge. He could try to get revenge on his brothers, but he turns it around and makes it into a positive. Okay, so you take the story despite who the characters are in the outline in the outrage, from what you learned from other stories. Don't look at the story of uh, of Noah as in all the Elohims are bad. Okay, because Noah was righteous. and that's why he was saved. And so there's always going to be a righteous group of people, remnant, and they will be preserved. Because just as that's why I said uh, it's similar to the time of Lot. Abraham was righteous, and he was praying for the righteous of the earth. He didn't forget about the righteous. So when the Elohim uh, messengers came to him and they told him what they were going to do, he then intercedes for Lot, and that's where, if you if you have a burden for, and that bothers you, that means you have a burden for it. You start interceding for the righteous, because there are righteous all over the place. So someone needs to play the part of Abraham to pray for that they get preserved through the fire, or somehow, and what happened? They went down, the angels went down into Sodom, uh, and Lot passes the test, you could say, that shows these angels that he is righteous, and that the test was he wanted to preserve those two men, because they were strangers, um, from the unrighteous people around him, and so that was the test. Okay, he needs to be taken out of the punishment, so to speak. So they do. He takes them out at the last minute, and then the fire and brimstone comes to Sodom and Gomorrah and destroys it, and so they escape. So if we're in the times of Lot, that's going to happen again. Otherwise, that wouldn't be part of the story. Does it make sense?
Okay, and so what do you predict is going to happen again, or what are you understanding is going to happen again then?
Well, something else, that's going to happen again. I don't know how it's going to happen,
For
but
sure.
you could, it could happen similar to, maybe that's the message of um, the first spaghetti trilogy of that uh, Clint Eastwood goes into this town, and there are two bad people in this town, two bad families, and at first he meets this little boy whose name is Jesus, and his mother's name is Marisol, Mary, and then his father is named, I think his father's name was John in this story. Uh, but eventually, um, Clint Eastwood gets the two families, the two evil people, to war against each other, and then he takes Adam, and he takes Jesus, Mary, and John, and steals them from the family that has them, and he tells them to run, to go. So he's saving them from this, and then he causes the two bad people to fight against each other, and then just basically destroy each other. They destroy. So we have. I saw, what brought this to mind is, we have what's going on in Israel. You got the Jews uh, committing genocide against the people of Palestine. And they're not all Arabs. They're not all Muslims. There's a lot of those Palestinians are Christians, and so they're just committing genocide just because they're Hamas. They're not Jews, so they're executing them. Well, I had read an article that said that Biden is going to send American troops, like so many tens of thousands of American troops to Palestine to sort of dare, I guess, the Israelis to continue to bomb there. So
Wow.
you see, and then you have Trump is like the opposite of Biden, because they're two different factions of the same bird. One's the left wing and the other one's the right wing.
Right
And
on.
so and all of a sudden I got a picture of this movie, this Clint Eastwood movie right here. You know, let's say Biden and he's the Mexican gun runners of this story, and Trump is the Mexican or the Spanish whiskey makers, or even if you watch the movie, you would understand what I'm throwing out here.
I get
And
it.
so,
I get
and
it.
they fight each other. They fight each other, and they eliminate each. So maybe that's how maybe maybe life is going to have each side of these Illuminati families fight each other, and then they'll eliminate each other. But in the process, they'll cause all kinds of chaos. Maybe that's how it's going to happen. Maybe that's what's going to happen. I don't know. And then we need to just not get involved with that. Step out of the side, not choose to be with either side. Not,
Exactly.
but we're
Exactly.
being, because when you look at it, what's the word for the people that are choosing with Trump?
Mm.
MAGA.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, I turn a blind eye to all of that stuff.
Yeah. Well, you're in Canada, so you're a
Uh, no,
spectator.
no, I just have a total aversion towards exactly this.
Right.
That at times during the pandemic, especially, you could see how like all of a sudden we'd be going along with the virus narrative, going along, and then boom, all of a sudden there's this racist thing, and there's a cop with the his knee on somebody's neck, and George,
Right. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
and then it just became obvious to me that we were dealing with competing factions.
Right.
They
Yes.
had totally different brands.
Right.
Right? And I got comfort from that, to your point, Mark, because I thought, "Oh, good, they're fighting with each other. We can get on with our good
Right. Yeah, we
work."
can get on with our life. Yeah. But you sort of have to sort of. Is there a way for us to step out and let them fight it out,
Fight it
and
out. Exactly.
then not get involved, not get in the middle, so that sort of like that movie, let them fight each other out, and they'll destroy each other, and Mary and Jesus and John can escape to America.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, that's an excellent point. I love
No,
that.
so it's a matter of perspective. Which perspective do you want uh, to to grasp, and
Mm.
hoping it makes sense. Because right now, a lot of people in the Christian church, they're being hoodwinked, and it does talk about a great deception coming, and this could be that great deception that comes in the Bible that talks about. So we need to not get caught up in that great deception, and because I don't think Trump is all that is being portrayed to us, because he is one of the members of the Illuminati family. So
Right. Right. And he's completely favored in the mainstream everything, right? He's
right,
allowed to be forward. He's how people always say it, they're selected, not elected.
right,
Right? They're characters on our stage, and
mhm,
they always need the character that so the people that would hate Biden are gonna love Trump, and the people that hate Trump are gonna love Biden, doing exactly what you're saying, making us all messed up in those two warring factions. If they truly are against each other or not, they seem to be, of course,
right,
but they're really on the same team.
right. You have the one side doing all the obvious negative stuff, whether it's child trafficking or the adrenochrome thing, and all that negative stuff. They're doing that, and then you have allegedly, Trump coming in and allegedly being against all that. Uh, who knows? He may not be. We just may not be seeing it because we're not being told it. Uh,
Exactly.
you know, it's sort of like you have this town and the mafia wants to take over. How are they going to do it with and have everybody go along with it? So we'll send in the thieves first, and we'll have these thieves steal and abuse all the stores, and then we'll walk in later and say, we could help you with those guys. You just pay us and we'll protect you, without realizing that they're the ones that sent in the bad guys in the first place.
Exactly, in the first place. And Yvonne, I love where you just went with that because the hero's journey, as you know, is my subject. And the big ripoff for all of these big shows, whether it's the Biden show or the Trump show or any version of it, is they convince us that they're the hero in
Right,
our journey.
right.
And this is, it's the free will of choice that it comes down to. That's how you choose to live the heroic life, to cooperate with the hero's journey rather than always, fighting against it. And yeah, I mean, that I think you just nailed it. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah. Well, now is the hero's journey? Is that from Pilgrim's Progress? Is that where you get that from?
I mean, it is credited to Joseph Campbell and the hero with a thousand faces that he was able to recognize this archetypal journey that everybody is on. Someone was telling me at some point, "Oh, there's no hero's journey in the Bible. That's satanic." And I'm like, "No, no, it's all the hero's journey, right?
Oh,
Every
well, yeah. There's always a hero and there's always a villain. Uh, in the
yeah,
Bible, just
yeah, overcoming against the odds, facing death can be several times, and then turning around to bring the elixir back to the people,
yeah,
right? There
yeah,
it's all the hero's journey. You can't get away from that.
yeah. It's all over the Bible. It doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily, the Bible is several different things. You have the perspective to of choice, and most people don't understand that there is the choice of the living in the Bible, and and a lot of times, like in the garden, they didn't choose the tree of the living, but then you have to ask yourself, well why, and then all of a sudden it dawned on me, just and this is rather recent picture, that they saw their life in the garden as slavery, and they wanted freedom, and so and freedom, even if freedom brought death, they'd still choose freedom over slavery.
Amen. That's exactly what my ancestors did,
Yeah,
and many of them died for that exact thing.
yeah,
Yep. Yeah, and we're putting our own heads on the chopping block
right.
these days for that. Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Wow. And then so regarding the eclipse that's coming up, again, the predictions of it, some are quite I guess it's a wrong use of the word, but apocalyptic, or that, terrible things are going to happen. Eyes are going to burn out of your head, and
Well, I
earthquakes are going to come. And
well, I don't know about all that. I wonder if is it somebody, or if there isn't going to be, if there is going to be an earthquake, or I wonder if it's going to be caused.
exactly, exactly, just using, because that video that you sent me had all the dates of when wars started on other eclipses, and it's
Right,
like, were they literally choosing that date? Right? Because wars don't erupt void of somebody's choice.
right,
Right? So is that just predictive programming where they're capitalizing on, because I do feel and believe that this eclipse season is a powerful time of potential transformation. Nothing
right,
nothing will happen by itself. You must choose it, you must cooperate with it. But and then is all the drama around it? I always question that, right? Why they need to make such a big deal and scare everybody and stuff. Is it to get us off our games so we're lost in fear and we don't do the much deeper work of healing so we can forgive and move on from certain things?
Well, that might be. They might be. They're probably. Well, they're definitely doing it to get fear. They want you to be afraid, so that you will, so that they can provide the solution to your fear.
And be the hero in your journey.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. They want to be the hero in your journey.
Yeah.
I haven't thought about it like that before, but that's uh, that's they're doing it for a reason, and it's a matter, can they get you off your game, and their goal is to be, for lack of a better term, God. And so if you can make them, they want to be your God. Uh, they don't want life to be your God. Uh,
Exactly. Exactly. So we turn to them for the basics of safety and
right,
love and approval and feeling in control of our lives and the food and the water. We think it all comes from them when
right,
really it comes from life.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, fantastic. It'll be interesting. I was thinking about it this morning for the eclipse in 4 days, and so much anticipation and so many people traveling in. And I think you said you're traveling to see it yourself, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I'd only live. I'm real close to the eclipse anyway, but I'm not in the direct path. But I have a friend that is in the direct path. And I grew up with him. We went to high school together. So I'm taking this opportunity to go see him, and in Alton, Missouri. Uh, so because the last time the eclipse, I just had to drive I just had to drive like 25 miles to get to see the eclipse. This time I'm driving 90 miles. Um, but it's I could go to a closer place, because of the way it goes, there's closer. But I figured I'd rather be with somebody I know, um, to see the eclipse.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah, well, it's going to be very interesting. And I was just wondering, like, is it just going to be another day? And then all the people, how they make these massive predictions and they never turn around and say, oh, yep, that didn't happen. I was wrong, or all that kind of
well,
stuff.
if you when you read the New Testament, there was an eclipse during the crucifixion, and so but I was wondering, normally eclipses don't happen uh, on a full moon.
Right. It's a new moon,
Yeah, it's a new moon, so
a
it would
dark moon.
always. So that was an unusual eclipse, because that does mention that there was an eclipse during the for a couple of minutes or whatever. So that was, they don't call it an eclipse. They just describe you know the atmosphere was, and you realize, okay, that's an eclipse. Because that's the way life doesn't talk to us in words. Life talks to us in what goes on around us, and life will present you an opportunity. You have to choose what to do with that opportunity. You can choose life, or you can choose something else, and you make your choice, and then you go on, and then you'll have another choice sooner, later. That's, your life is full of choices, and that's life giving you a choice to see what you'll choose. We see if you'll choose with the living, or you'll choose with, of course, it's the dying. As Matt would say, you choose either with the life end of the wave, or you choose the death side of the wave.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm reminded of that verse, precisely what you're saying. And to the effect that I place life and death before you.
Right.
Choose life. Now
Yeah.
that
So
now that's a little interesting. Who's the I talking there? Place life and death before you.
right.
That
See, um, this is how you read the Bible, and you choose the perspective. In that case, because life gives us opportunity. Life presents us with things. So in that story, uh, even though this story, the character, the hero, or the character in that story is Yahweh, but he's in the place of life. So life, because we're living life, so it's life. It's keeping it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
uh, so life presents us with opportunities, and we have to choose which opportunity we want to take. We can be scared and choose what we think is the safe way, but maybe that's not necessarily the right choice anyway. Because it's sort of like the prophet goes up to the king and says, um, "Take your arrows and 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 throw them out or do something with them." This is from the Bible, and so the king chooses. He just takes 3 arrows and shoots them out, and then the prophet says, "You should have chosen all your arrows, and now since you just chose 3, you're only going to defeat your enemy 3 times, and that's it. So you should have chosen all your arrows." I don't know if you're familiar with that story, but but that's to see. He only went so far in his choice. So life presents us with a choice, and we only go so far with it, and then quit. But if you go all the way, you'll get a better prize. So
Mhm.
that's one way to look at that story and apply it to yourself. Because everybody's given opportunities. And you take them and go.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, and so you're obviously not one of those Christians that says there's only one way to read the Bible. There's only one truth, only one perspective.
Yeah, there's more. There's plenty of there. Once you start reading from the Hebrew, you start realizing, because you have to know who wrote the Bible. Because life cannot influence you into what to go, because that would mean that your life would be taking away your choice. Life's not going to take away your choice. Life's going to allow you to choose. So if the Bible, so then you apply that to the Bible. If this is a book from life, that means, and everything in it is from life. That means life has taken away your choice. Then you understand how. But if this book is to give us choices, who's going to give us the most choices? Uh, and that would be Lucifer. Uh,
Mm. Yeah,
you understand? He's going to
yeah.
give us all the choices, so that we choose, and then he's not, but he's going to one that's going to be the what? The one to, well, this is the way you should really go. This is the way,
Mhm.
and you have to be
Mhm.
able to see, okay, well, no, that's not really the choice I need to make. I really need to go this way, and
Right.
you know, and go. It's sort of like the people going in the music industry. If I want to be the right kind of singer, well, you're gonna come up with, hey, we can make you the best singer you want. You just gotta do what we say. If your moral compass isn't grounded right, you're gonna follow, and then you're gonna be sucked into making all those contracts you don't want to make. And but if your compass is sound, you're going to see that I really don't want to do those things, so I don't want to make this contract, and so you
Mhm.
go.
Mhm. Mhm.
And there's a different path for you to go. Not fame and fortune.
Right, right. And so have you ever had a meeting with Lucifer, meaning there's some deep questions in there of like, do you see Lucifer as a being entity that, like you said, has no choice anymore? This is just how it's set out. Yeah.
Well, now that you say that, okay, that I
Oh,
told you about, and then
can
I put it on the shelf, and then I went down to I went through the Messianic movement, and then I was running into problems with the the rabbi, and so I left that organization at that time. And then so I went down to Tennessee, to Paris, near Paris, Tennessee, to go to the Feast of Tabernacles. Uh, and then the gentleman down there, he says you need to meet the guy that's hosting the the Feast of Tabernacles at his house. And then so I met him, and I felt led to tell him the code that I found in the Bible. And then I told him when I went through the story of how I discovered this first code, and what the code said, and then that's where he said that that this code was not meant for you to learn. This is only meant for the people of my bloodline to know. And that's the Luciferian bloodline, the Illuminati. And then so as you're asking that question, at that time I didn't realize how far down the rabbit hole he was. I took him at his word that he had left that lifestyle behind, but he didn't. I later around found out that he was still in the thick of things, and but I was supposed to meet him because of the prophecy that was given to the rabbis in Scranton, because they were given a word of prophecy that they would meet him, not him by name, but when they saw him, he was the guy. It was shortly after that he had said some things to my stepson that wasn't kosher, and then we realized that I needed to step away from him. And I confronted him about it, because my wife said you need to confront him, so I did. And he really got mad at me, and I knew that he never did leave that lifestyle behind, and and so we had to part ways. So you could say that yes, I did. I met either a messenger of Lucifer, or maybe some high up, because I believe that his family was the priestly side of the Illuminati, because they were held to their job was to preserve the keys of the code, and all three books. And so I believe that's why that would be the role of the priestly tribe. So they're not one of the normal 13 tribes that we're told about, the 13 families. He's one of those extra two. And then when you look at when you get a look at the Jews nowadays, especially the Jews that are running everything, they're not Israelite Jews. They're not the Jews in the Bible that are Israelites. They are the Jews in the New Testament, in Revelations, the ones that say they are Jews and are not. You understand? They are the Khazarian Jews, or the Ashkenazi Jews. They're not the Israelite Jews. They're not Israelite Jews. And you can see that in the way they, because a lot of the rabbis, they were really attracted to him from the beginning. When they were just totally enamored by him, and he's a Kabbalist. He was really thorough. He was like a master of the Kabbalah, and they could see that. And there's only one way they could see that, is if they were into the Kabbalah themselves. And so like sees like, and so these Jews were not. They appeared to be Torah keeping Jews, but they're really not. They are the Jews who say they are Jews and are not.
Right. Yeah. And just reminding me of all of the war that Jesus was in with the priest class.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
They are the Jews that say they are Jews and are not. That's why he called them the seed of Satan, the sons of, the children of Satan, the children of the devil.
Right.
He knew who they were, and they're the same, they're here now, and we get mystified. A lot of Christians, say, well, we gotta respect these, Jews, because, the Bible says, to to befriend them and whatever, we're not to treat them bad, but you don't understand that you're being tricked, because these aren't the Jews that they say they are. They're the fake Jews, you know, and so they're not the Jews that they say they are. They're the Jews that are Jews but are not. The
Right.
Nicolaitans, the whatever
Right.
of the Revelation. When you read Revelation, and there's those two or three churches that follow these Jews, and these are the Jews that say they're Jews and are not. That's who they are, and they're among us right now.
Right. Right. Interesting. Wow. Yeah. And maybe down the line we can talk about Revelations. I think we're going to be out of time for that today. But
Right.
ag- and then Yvonne, thanks for being so loyal in the chat today. Uh, saying they're there in Tennessee, and there's a lot of tall people, and they have the Titans and so much of
Yeah.
the architecture. So
Yeah.
yeah,
There you go.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So got the evidence of it. I know a lot of people have gone down that rabbit hole, if you want to call it.
Right.
But well, I appreciate so much, Mark. It's funny how there's that part of your mind that I just want to get the story straight, and
The story is bigger. The story is bigger than you can imagine, and
mhm,
it's got a lot of. I don't know every aspect of it yet, because I'm still, studying the Bible, as it goes. You know, the my first translation of the Bible is a surface translation. The first 5 books that I have written, first translations, they're just surface translations, because if anybody's looked at them, and then they go into my commentaries, the commentaries are deep. They are deep, and they go deeper than the translation itself. And you may think that they don't jive up, but they don't jive up because the translation is just the outer shell of the onion.
mhm, mhm,
The commentary it's a deep dive
right.
into it, and I peel back. I don't peel back them all, because if I did, the book would be this thick.
Yeah, exactly. And Yvonne is asking, did you write a book about the Titans, the tall ones,
Well,
already?
you could say that uh, the Adams family, touches into that, because
Okay,
it leads into the book, into the days of Noah, because that's when the Titans are.
right.
They're
Yeah.
but
So you can go and look for that book at
well, it's really the Adam families.
the Adam. No, I did that wrong. Okay, so the Adam families.
Yes,
Okay,
because the families is plural. The
got it.
Adam is, not,
There you go. Oh, I did.
yeah, the Adam
Oh,
families. Yeah.
oh, shit. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Oh, and she meant the whole breakdown of it all. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
uh,
when I discuss the two chapters of Genesis, I really go into deep into dividing them into, so you can see that they're different. Each of them is different, and there's one appendix where I show the differences between the two atoms, so that they're different, because they're not the
okay.
same. There are similarities, but they're differences.
Right. 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 Wow. Yeah, I thought this was going to bring a lot of clarity, but it's brought more nuance, and
Right.
and
Yes.
that's how truth happens, right? I,
Yes.
I've said it often. If other people say it, the more I know, the less I know, and so
Well, some people in my book, my I try to show how the different perspectives are. Uh, sort of like the elephant story, the blindfold and 4 people touching the elephant. One person's touching the trunk, and they trying to describe the trunk, and got one person describing the tail, and you got one guy describing one leg, and the other guy describing the other leg on the other side, and you all think that they're describing a different animal, but really they're describing the same animal. It's just that they're only describing their part. And I have a different picture of that, where I had these 8-sided, 8 or maybe 12-sided blocks, and I painted each side with a different color, and I painted all 3 of them the same. and then I put them all three in the picture, but I turned them so you only see one side, and see, and that's how you look at the Bible. It has different perspectives. It's all the same block, but you may only be looking at it from one perspective, and and it's true from the perspective that you're looking at. But you got to understand that you can turn that block around, and there's a different color on a different side, and there's a perspective there, and that side is just as true as the other side. You have to, there's different perspectives so that you can get a different story. It's like reading the Bible one week, and you're reading that same verse, and then 6 months later you read it again. All of a sudden you get a different picture.
Mm-hmm,
you
mm-hmm.
know and
Exactly.
that's the way it goes.
Mm-hmm. Yep, beautiful. It's a good marker also when you go and you look at the same thing again. Again, for anybody who doesn't know, I'm creating an audiobook out of my book journey right now, and reading through these eyes, it was part of my resistance to doing it. It was that, like, oh, am I even going to agree with my own book? And there are some things I even debated at the beginning, Mark, that am I going to do commentary as I go? Well, I would be lost in the weeds completely. I still wouldn't have made it through the introduction if I did that. It's not a baby in the bathwater. There's still a lot that is still true for me in there. There are things that I would do. And then last night I concluded it's just like, Beth, you just got to write your next book. That's,
Right.
yeah. And let that be the perspective that it was. Otherwise,
Right.
Where do you stop unraveling the sweater? By the time but in the end, you have no sweater at all. So,
Because then, when you say that, I am in the process of printing out all my poetry.
oh,
And I
good.
got like eight or 900 poems,
Wow.
and I'm almost done. But as I'm reading them, I think I'm not in this place anymore. I don't necessarily agree with that particular poem anymore.
Yeah.
And so some of the poems I put on my website, and some of them I modified again to make them more agree, more down the line with what I looking at now. But if I don't, so I'm not going to change a lot of them, because that's where I was. It's my journey. I don't want to change my journey, because then no way of showing where I was to where I'm at.
Right. Right. It shows the map. Yeah, exactly.
Because I was looking at, I was thinking about your test and whatnot,
Mm,
and I was thinking, well, some of the things that I'm going through, I see myself as already in the alchemist
mm,
stage.
mhm.
So I'm like in between the king's stage and the alchemist stage.
And that's
One who's
the
able to
exact one.
change things, you know, um, that happen. You know,
Oh,
that's the alchemist. And so I see aspects of my walk, and I see where I'm like starting to.
oh, we might have a little connection problem. He'll be back, I'm sure. And hello, Michelle. Nice to see you. Oh, there you are. Good. Just had a little lag in the connection.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Everything went black here.
Ah,
So
yeah. What were you just saying? Anyway, very good points just about the historical
right,
nature of creation. Same thing. You know what? I'm happily singing my songs now, even though they're not totally um, current with my
right,
way of thinking and believing. But I'm just giving myself permission to have them be what they are
right.
in their time.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that's good. I appreciate that perspective a lot. And oh yeah, you were talking about the alchemist, going from the king to the alchemist
Yeah,
and changing, having that
the
ability to,
ability to change things, that are going on around about you, and that's part of the. So I see myself, because I took that test, and it showed me at the king's level, which is, but the next level is the alchemist level, and all of a sudden I saw some things that I'm doing, and I think, well, that fits in with that.
amazing. Amazing. Yes, it's alchemist work what you're doing. That's really really cool that you've seen that pattern. And the king has a very big task, and so the alchemist is there to serve that king and to show the more subtle sides of the picture, very in keeping. In fact, this whole discussion has been very alchemist, now that you say that.
Right. So
Yeah.
it's just peculiar.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really neat. I love to see when that works. If anybody hasn't done the quiz at my website yet, or you haven't done it recently, you can just visit my homepage, bethmartins.com, and in about 10 minutes find out where you are on that. I call it a scale or a path of purpose. And it's not just about climbing to the top, it's about really understanding the structure of that spiral, how we go, make your way all the way to the alchemist, and then boom, you're at the child again. That's the kind of punchline. And then how, where is the real freedom? What you talked about at the beginning, how they over slavery, they chose freedom. And that's, to me, the whole purpose, the choice that we forget to make on this earth, because no one ever told us that it was even an option.
When you talk about that, when I was in church Christianity, it was always going in circles. And if you ever read the Bible, the Israelites went out and battled, and then they returned to Gilgal, and Gilgal just means circles, traveling in circles.
Mm,
And so I, when I was in Christianity or churchianity, traveling in circles at the bottom of the hill, and then I left that and went to explore the messianic realm, and then going around in circles with them, and going up, and all of a sudden, that came to the point where that was, I had to leave that, and I noticed that each time you go around the mountain and going up, things things change. Like things that were right down here were wrong up here,
exactly.
and then when you out of that, things that were wrong here were right there, but then they're right here. And sometimes you get confused as to what you do, how you to live. And
Yeah.
so, in one manner of speaking, you could say each level you're going around, you're in a different spot of the in your case, the hero's journey. So I was,
Exactly.
and it's
Yeah, and the next go around, the king may look completely different for you. The
right,
alchemist may also be completely different, almost unrecognizably so. But because of the inherent patterns there, you can still see, that's the blueprint of that archetype.
right,
And yeah, it's so highly nuanced. I think it is what gets a great deal of those churchianity people into conundrums, because they can't. It's not in the context of the growing that is naturally happening if we don't stop it, or at least that we choose it. I believe is a big part of that growth process. And then, yeah, so much more freedom in journey, allowing yourself to be where you're at and
I
where you
noticed
are.
that a lot of people in church, they don't want to get out of their comfort zone.
Exactly. And that's why they don't call it the tiptoe through the tulips. They call it
Right.
the hero's journey. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. Wow, beautiful. I think that's a fantastic place to leave the stream at. And do you want to just let people know the website you can visit right now is treeoftheliving.com? Is
right,
there,
yeah, treeoftheliving.com, yeah.
yeah, any other thoughts, things you'd like people to do when they get there, or
Well, just
ways to
you
interact
know,
with you?
now there are several. There's I put a lot of blogs on there. Uh, Not all of them are. Uh, I'm not at the same place on all of them anymore. You could. It's sort of it's a journey, and they're all dated. They're all dated in the fashion of day, month, year, because that's the way I look at things. Not month, day, year. I go day, month, year, because I figure that's the progression it's supposed to be.
I know. My brain always has a problem with that stupid, like, I literally never know which one is supposedly correct. And
Yeah.
I
So
think when you look it up, it's both. So it's just
so
like,
so, but I put it all as one number. I don't put the line in, so you might get confused. So like
okay,
like today would be 4042024.
okay,
That's
good
how
to
I
know.
would write today.
Okay, that helps.
So that's
Right
when you
on.
see the date on those things, it goes in that fashion. And
Right.
like I'm working on an article now, a way of looking at Genesis chapter 1, in regards to Satan, or Lucifer, and life and the creation and stuff like that.
Okay,
I
well,
haven't finished it yet.
definitely keep me posted. I was also going to invite you to the um,
Star Trek thing,
yes, that and my Telegram group, the King Heroes Journey. So
right?
it might be nice if you're up to it to come in and if there's any questions and discussions. I know there was already a few people that were sending stuff your way, so I'll drop a link in your Telegram about that, and then
Okay,
absolutely we'll make a date for the cage.
okay, yeah, yeah. Now, will that be similar to this type of setting? I mean, where everybody will be on,
No,
or
it's private on Zoom, so there will be people on, but only the members of the House of Free Will. And if anybody is interested in being a member of the House of Free Will, you're most welcome to apply. You can just visit my webpage, bethmartins.com, and you'll find a link that will lead you to that House of Free Will. And you have to fill out some questions. I vet people so that they're the right kind of people. You can't just be anybody to come in. And there is a really nice fellowship growing, and we have events. Matt Presti, by the way, is coming next week. Is it next week already? No, April 12th. Um, is that next week already? Pretty close to
well, it's
next week.
8 days.
Yeah, 8 days. And he's going to be talking about the harnessing the creative drive according to Walter Russell's work. And then we have the workshop with Berlando on the 26th on building the body, which I am excited about too. So those are all free to members. And Mark, if you would like to be a member, you are absolutely most welcome.
Okay, I just have to figure out how to do it.
I'll send you a link direct to
Okay,
it, so you don't have to guess. Yeah.
all right,
Okay.
and then that's the same thing, and that'll be and that's related to the your Star Trek.
Exactly. That's where one of our members suggested, shout out to you, that we start watching Star Trek, or maybe I said it and she repeated, let's do it in the House of Free Will. So it is a perfect activity for that.
Okay, good.
Yeah. 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 That'd be
Yeah,
a lot of fun. Bring my
yeah.
childhood right back to me. Yeah. Yeah. All right, fantastic. Thank you for taking the time, Mark. It's really been an enlightening discussion again, and forgive all of my really direct questions trying to nail you down. But I've come out of it with a much more clear sense of even how to ask those questions. So,
Well,
thank you
that's
so
good.
much. Yeah, yeah,
Okay, I'll be can't wait to do the thing with my favorite show.
good, good, awesome. That'll make it even better. So, we'll set a date for that. And thank you everyone for joining and watching on any of the platforms. This interview will go to the podcast channels as well, Spotify and iTunes and most of those out there. So if you want to if you prefer to listen to this and download it and have it offline, then that will be coming soon as well.
Right. And I'm not scared of getting questions. So if you want to drop a line through my website, you can.
Okay, that sounds good. So anybody can visit the treeoftheliving.com and ask direct questions to Mark, and then you can also come in the King Hero chat on Telegram if you're going to join. So that sounds good. All right, everyone, have a beautiful rest of your day. I'm going to go off and grab my son for some supper. It's actually been a beautiful summery day here. Amazing, like sun the whole day, except that now I do see the chemtrail. They muddied up a little bit while we've been talking, but I'm going to go enjoy the last of the the sunshine. And I hope you have a beautiful evening yourself, Mark.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, you're very welcome. Bye, everyone. Bye.